I get hit up a lot for flies. Really don't want to get into tying them commercially because that would suck up a lot of fishing time, having to fill orders right before or during a season. I like tube flies a lot. I pretty much use them all the time. They're extremely durable. All these flies that you see here, these are all flies that I used last year. I just cut them off the leader so I could tie new leaders for them because they definitely outlast the leaders. These outlast the paint on spoons. I mean, if I could paint, I'd probably do spoons too, but these things last for years if you take care of them. You don't want to leave them sitting out in the sunlight all the time, and then after you're done with them, for the end of the day, I bring them home and I just throw them in the sink with some Dawn dish soap and turn the warm water on and let them get soaked, and then I throw them on a paper towel to dry. That's all I do. They're pretty low maintenance. This pattern here, it's really easy to tie. I like this size here. I tie them on the small tubes, which is the inner tube, but I'm big on breaking rules. But they're really easy to scale up or scale down. You could take and scale them up just by going to the bigger tube and tying an extra stack or two, adding a little bit more bulk. And they're easy to scale down, say for like kokanee. I've even tied them on jig heads for steelhead, and they work really well. So I will show you how I tie this GoTo of mine. This guy gets tied on about half an inch, maybe a little bit less than half an inch of tube. I cut my tube at 3/4 inch, just because you want some extra tubing sticking out the back to make it easy to find to run your leader through after you tie your hooks on. It doesn't matter if you're trolling or using it on a fly rod. So I'll start my thread. I'm using some Semper Fly 6/0, and I'll start about 1/8 of an inch from the end. And I'll wind back to give myself a base to about halfway. I want about 3/8 of an inch, which is about what I got, hanging off the back of it. So that's again to make it easier to put your leader on. Then I'll go ahead and give it like a 4 wrap whip finish. Then when I get to there, I use a lot of loon flow when I tie this fly. I just get a little bit on there and rub it around with the tip and get it everywhere. And then I'll kind of rub my finger on it. I just want it to soak into the material so I can kind of bond it to the tube. But I wipe off the excess with my finger so I don't wind up increasing the bulk. We're kind of going to do that throughout the tie of this fly. And then for colors, I am low on purple. I've only got one left. I gave them all away. Purple, I'll use a dark purple, a dark blue, and then this guy here, this is my favorite. This is kind of a black and bronze. I'll use this down deep, say 45 feet and below. When I get into the 30 to 45 feet, I'll use kind of a more natural color, something like this. And then, above that, like when I'm trolling silvers and stuff, I'll use, your fluorescence, your chartreuse, and your pink and orange. Some of my friends like this one because they're really into the glow stuff. I don't do the glow. Just really not into it. I kind of look at colors as like stops of gray and dynamic range on a camera. I'm just trying to get something that can see really well. And if you look at like underwater footage, you go down deep, you'll see even dogfish. I mean, they're brown. They show up really well. They're really silhouetted really well at depths. So I'm kind of a dark water, dark lure kind of guy. So that's what I stick to. So, but this one here, I'm low on purple, so we're going to tie some purple. So I'll go ahead and, since I glued everything down and let it set for a second, I'll give it a couple of wraps. And my underbottom in this one, I'm using, this is a hollow tie craft hair fly. So I'm going to use some gray dun to start with. And my scissors, cut off a bit. And you want to grab it by the long hairs and strip out the short ones. And if your craft hair starts going all crazy on you, just have a dryer sheet with you and just rub a dryer sheet on it, and that will take all the static out of it and make it easier to manage. I'll give it about 3 wraps, and then you can just kind of pinch and pull to get it all around the tube real well. And then I'll take and flare it back, give it a couple wraps, make sure I'm good there, and then I hit it with a little bit of flow. Just get a drop and work it around with your tip. And I give it a second to soak in, and soak down through it. When I'm tying this fly, I'm staying really sparse with my materials for 2 things. We're building length, not bulk, unless you're trying to tie a big one. But I like to let the flow get all the way down to it, to the layer underneath, so it'll bond when you put the light on it. But then I just use my finger to wipe off any excess, so I'm not creating any bulk or any bumps in there, because that will change how well it lays down. So now I got a stack of gray on there, so now I'll kind of mix it up a little bit. I'll go to the bottom. I'll cut some more gray. Again, grab it by the long hairs, strip the short ones out. Sometimes that stripping alone is what causes the static to go crazy with it. I'll lay this on the bottom. Give it about 2 wraps and I just leave it. I don't worry about its position yet. Then I will get some purple. When I lay my scissors in the craft hair, I'll come in about 1/4 of an inch and I'll get all the way to the length and I just snip it. So that length right there is what I'm using for the amount of craft hair. And this purple has a lot of short hairs. You can see it's really bulky in the front. So pull that out. Okay, now I'll take and look at my size and make sure I'm meeting up like halfway down, a little bit below on this side, so I'll just pinch and pull it up, rub off my vise, get a hold of my purple. Sometimes if it's hard to separate, you could just stick a needle through in front of the tie and pull it up. So I'll pull my purple up, I'll get in front of it, pull my gray back, and get my stack back. And I'll get over it. I just try to give it like 2 or 3. Make sure your tube's on your mandrel really well so it doesn't slip. So I'll give it like 2 or 3. And then throw a drop on there. And this is where it'll bite you. If you get any of the resin in front of it, it forms like a bit of a funnel, kind of gives you a ramp there, and you can't tie back up on that ramp. Your thread will always fall down in front of it and it'll give you a gap. That's okay after you're completely done and on your last stack, but you don't want it back here. That'll increase the length of the fly on the tube. And you only got how much ever tube that you cut and put on there to start with. You can't add to it. So doing this, we kind of bind the fly and the materials together all the way through. Okay, so now we got our craft hair on there. We're done with our craft hair. So then we move to some dubbing. I actually hollow tie with dubbing a lot. Laser dub's really good. It's got good long fibers. I use a lot of ice dub, like in the glow fly. That's glow ice dub. A lot of things you can use. The fusion dub, it gets a little bit short, but it's still manageable, and I like it because it's got some blue and some red streaks in there, which kind of helps add to some definition of the underbody. So what I do is I just take the dubbing and I'm just stripping it. I'm not tearing it. I'm just getting all the fibers as long as they can be and lining them up. So I'll take and I'll just pull some out and line up the ends. And then I'll leave about a quarter of it in there. And I'll tie that down. And then on the bottom, for this fly, this is the dark deep water fly, so I'm using the silver gray. It's kind of a charcoal gray ice dub. They've got a silver minnow belly dubbing. I think that's in a laser dub. I'm pretty sure. And I'll also use the holographic as well, but it makes for a great belly on your lighter colored flies. So I'll get some of this here, and like I said, you're going sparse because you're not trying to build bulk. You're looking to build length, because you're going to do several stacks, like 3 of them. So you just grab all your ones that are too long, reposition them for length, and you'll start to see they line up. So the fibers are about that long, it works perfect. So I'll come about a quarter of the way up. And then I'll just take and pinch and pull them together so they fill in the sides. Like so. Like I say, you can use a needle here to separate if you need to. I'll get over the top one, and then I get a hold of the bottom one, and I get in front of it, and then comb it back with your fingers, and then get over the top of it. Give it 3 and then come back in front. And then I hit it with some flow. It's sometimes a good idea to hold it back up when you hit it with flow. Like I said, you just want enough in there to let it soak in for a second, and then wipe it off with your fingers so you don't get that ramp there, so you don't have too much excess. And if it's bulking out on you, you can pinch it together when you hit it with your UV light, and that'll help hold it down. You see how better it's laying down. So then I'll hit it with another stack of purple and gray. More on that pinch. I'll go ahead and give it one more. See, I'm just lining, I'm not tearing it, I'm just lining them up for length. I usually give them about 2, flip it. I'm going to say try not to go too bulky. Try and just keep it kind of sparse. When you first tie them in, you'd be like, oh, that's too sparse, but it builds. They lay over each other. and you'll get your length out of it. All right, now I just pinch and pull to match it up on the sides. Just spread that stuff around. All right. Over and get in front of it. Get in front of the bottom. Comb it back. So I'm trying to escape there. Get over it. Get back in front of it. And hit it with some flow. It's another nice thing about tube flies is how easy it is to spin around and get all the way around the things. Let her soak in and then brush off your excess with your fingers. Wipe it on your pants or the couch if your wife ain't looking. Then hit it. That's laying down pretty good. And if you're not trying to make a video where you're trying to explain each step, you can really crank these things out. I crank a full one out crank out about 6-7 an hour. So there we go. We got 2 stacks on, and after 2 stacks, I'm going to get some lateral flash, and on my darker ones, I will go with opal color. Grab a needle here. Get that one. So I just go in the side of the pack and I'll get 2 to 3 strands. That's all I want. But I want to be able to get down to the base of them so I don't waste any. So I'll get 2 to 3 strands of lateral flash. And then I just take and as long as they're as long as the fly, that's all I'm worried about. I'll actually trim them off. Get just enough on there to hold them in place, and then I'll pull them down to the sides like so. And then It'll usually stick to your fly a little bit there. Okay, so we got our flash on the side. Now I'm going to make a dorsal line, and just for sake of being honest, you don't have to do a dorsal line, or you don't have to do eyes. Salmon don't really care. Your friends will, salmon won't. But I mean, I used to guide fly fishing in Alaska, and I really got to appreciate guide ties. That's where you cut out everything but just what's necessary to fly so you could tie more. I'll cut about 1/4 inch of black craft hair and pull the short hairs out so you don't really have much left at all. And then I'll hit it with some medium viscosity flexible on the Saltwarer. And just put a little dab on there, like so. And work it in with my fingers so it all sticks together. Of course, wipe that off with the cap back on it. You really want to use a flexible here because then you want it so it'll come around and form the head really well. So I'll take it. It's kind of flat. And I'll tie that in. But like I said, you don't really have to do this. You know, salmon are in a real competitive environment. Like if you were around 10,000 of your siblings and you saw something that resembled a cheeseburger, you'd have to hit it really fast. You couldn't second guess it. You'd have to hit it or you'd starve to death. Salmon are kind of like those guys that catcall women, and then it'll go whooping at one out the window of their truck, and it turns around and it's a guy with long hair, and then 5 minutes later they're back to catcalling again. That's pretty much how salmon look at things. That's why I don't really bother using any scent. If they see something that looks even close to being food, they've got no choice but to hit it or starve to death. So now I go to some Ice Dove Shimmer, and you can get this in a lot of different colors. My favorites, of course, are the color I'm using, or the bronze, or peacock. I use peacock a lot. Now all you got to do is cut you roughly about a 1/4 inch. Just cut through the end that's melted down there and pull that off. Throw that back in the package before it gets messed up with a bunch of trimmings. Get down there. All right. So then I just take this, pinch it, layer on there. And make sure you're positioned pretty well before you snug it down. I just want things to lay on the top here. This is eventually going to wind up being the back. So after I get that tied in good there, then I just take that melted part off the back and just trim it off. Now if I'm doing a lighter color fly where I just want the extra detail, again, you don't have to do it. This is also where I'd tie a beard in on the bottom. I like tying in a material for a beard rather than use the colored resin, just because it shows out better and it's a lot tougher. So I would tie that in the bottom at this point. So you got a little bit of a gap here, and your other stacks are closer together, but this one's out a little bit. So that actually helps out, because at this point you can add a little extra bulk in this last stack. So get my purple. That extra bulk you get here, because of that gap, it'll lay down better. Get that all stacked up nicely. And I'll get it tied in. Get about 2 wraps. Take it over. I'll get some more gray. I've got a little bit extra gray in here, a little bit more bulk in my gray this time. I'll pull my ends out, kind of readjust, get it stacked up a little better. Go to my sides, pinch them together. And at this point, I'm actually, let me pull this purple down here. How far is that going to come down? I was going to add a little extra gray, but I don't need it. Because you can actually add, you can tie in a little extra if you need to. So then I'll sweep back my top. I'll try and sweep back the bottom a little bit. And then I'll get my flashy stuff here and my dorsal line. This is why you want to use the flexible, so you can peel that sucker back and then just comb it all back with your hands. Get in front of it, give yourself a couple of wraps. Now you can take and you can force that dorsal stripe down. Like I said, you don't have to do that. I just do it because it does look better. I'm all for tying realistic looking flies, but if it was a pinch of season and I was out of a color, I wouldn't worry about it. So I'll get in front of it a little bit, and that pulls back pretty nice. It'll form a good head. So I tie back into it as best I can, and then give it about a 4 wrap whip finish. I used to give these flies several whip finishes, but since I started using the resin, I kind of quit doing that. So now, pinch everything back to where it looks pretty good to you. And then I'm going to take an alcohol marker. Yoink, yoink. I'm going to color my thread the color of the fly. Get any extra fuzz off of there. That extra fuzz can cause a problem. So now I can look at this side, I can look at that side, and it looks pretty good, looks pretty half and half. All right, so now I take my flow, and I'll get the side pretty good, and I'll move it around with the tip. I'll soak the whole side, and then I'll do this side. Drop on there and soak the whole side. I'll add a drop up here and a drop to glue the line down to the sides. Looks pretty good. And I'll zap it. I'll let go. We'll flip it around. Oh, that looks pretty good. Okay. So now forming the head. You want to make sure that if you have any loose fibers of anything sticking out, it'll form little peaks in your resin. So look at the side of the head. Make sure you don't have anything sticking out to give you those peaks. And it looks pretty good. So now I'm going to stick some eyes on there. And again, you don't have to. I use the glow eyes for my deep stuff. My friends really like it. So I'll just position an eye towards the front, and I'll kind of center it. And these eyes do not stick to cured resin worth a darn. So I'll tack them in place with a little flow. And you don't want it up on the eye yet. You want it to drag it down. See, like there, it went up on top of the eye. It's gonna be, there we go. That doesn't look too bad. So I'll tack that sucker in place. Hopefully I got it tacked well enough. It doesn't fall off. And I'll get one on this side. And I can look through the side and I can see they're pretty much, now I got a fiber up in the middle of my stuff here, so I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to move my eye back just a hair. Okay. Make sure it's about centered. That looks good. So now hit it with some flow on the back. And I'm going to hit it with some on the front. There we go. I want to make sure I've got them tacked down really good. That one looks good. All right, so I'll cap this. So the reason I want them tacked down really good is now I'm going to get some thin, hard Saltwarer. And make sure all my stuff's sitting back. I do have a couple of fibers sticking out here. So I'm going to trim those babies down so I don't get a peak. And just so you know, a good tip, if you do get a peak, you could take and after it's all cured up, you can sand it down. I'll use like a jeweler's file like this one and just sand it down, and then it'll be dull and white looking, and you take and you just hit it with some flow over the top of it and smooth it out, and it will smooth down. So this, I go around the outside of the eye and then I drag it up over with the tip, and I pretty much shape my whole head by just dragging it around with the tip. And on this one, this coat, I just do one side at a time. I'll do this side. Go around the eye, and then I drag it up and over the eye. And I got a fiber in there. I'll drag it around with the tip, get it nice and smooth. If you got a little extra, you can actually just drag it back a little bit. That really helps if you got extra bulk there. And if you got any holes or craters or anything, you could always fill in with more. That's a piece of cake. And there you go. That is pretty much it. I've got another purple, and they just pop right off. And there you go. That's what she looks like. Easy peasy. Like I said, you can really get to cranking these out. If you want dorsal stripes, make up a bunch ahead of time, and then just sit down. You could, I mean, if you're guide tying and not putting dorsal stripes or eyes on these things, you could probably crank out a dozen in an hour in no time. And you could do any color combination that you could come up with. And there's tons of dubbing out there with fibers long enough to hollow tie with, craft hairs in a lot of different colors. I tried dyeing craft hair. It didn't work out too well for me. I haven't figured that part out yet, but there you go. Now I got another purple, so good to go.